I was 15 when I first stepped inside a megachurch. The lights hit me like a stadium concert. 20,000 people on their feet, hands in the air, crying, laughing, speaking in tongues. The worship band sounded like Coldplay on steroids. The pastor walked out in designer sneakers and a $3,000 jacket, smiling like he just won the lottery and wanted to tell you how you could too. I remember thinking, this isn't church. This is something else. Fast forward 15 years and I still can't shake that feeling. Because what I walked into that day wasn't just a Sunday service. It was the most successful business model religion has ever created. A machine that turns hope into cash, faith into private jets, and broken people into lifelong donors. And the craziest part? It's not even hiding. It's bragging. Kenneth Copeland, laughing in a reporter's face because she dared ask why he needs 3 private jets. Joel Osteen smiling in front of his $325,000 Ferrari while telling you to speak victory into your life. Creflo Dollar begging his congregation for $65 million to buy a Gulfstream G65. Oh, because, and I quote, Jesus wouldn't be riding a donkey today. These aren't fringe lunatics. These are the kings of modern Christianity. Lakewood Church, 45,000 weekly attendees. Estimated annual revenue, $90 million. Elevation. Church, 25,000 people across 20 locations. Hillsong, a global empire with albums, merchandise, and celebrity pastors who dress better than Hollywood actors. And every single one of them runs on the same unspoken promise. Give God your money, and He'll give you more back. They call it the prosperity gospel. I call it the greatest scam most people still defend with their dying breath. Because the moment you question it, you're not attacking a preacher. You're attacking someone's mom, someone's healing, someone's last thread of hope. So today, we're going all the way in. No surface level snark. No cheap atheist gotchas. We're going to walk through the birth of this movement, the psychology that keeps it alive, the real human cost, and the one question nobody in these churches wants you to ask. If this is really God's plan, why does it look exactly like a pyramid scheme with better lighting? Let's begin where it all started. Not in a church, not in a tent revival, but in a prison cell. In 1948, a failed preacher and alcoholic named Oral Roberts sat in a jail cell for drunk driving. While staring at the walls, he claims God gave him a vision. Raise up your hands and heal the sick. Build me a university, and I will make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. He took that vision and turned it into the seed faith doctrine. The idea that if you plant a seed, translation, send me money, God is obligated to give you a harvest. It was the birth of spiritual gambling. And it worked. By the 1980s, televangelists were pulling in hundreds of millions. Jim Bakker had his own Christian theme park. Jimmy Swaggart was crying on TV while sleeping with prostitutes. And a young pastor named Joel Osteen was watching it all from his father's church in Houston, learning exactly how to smile while selling salvation. But something shifted in the 2000s. The internet happened. Suddenly, you didn't need a TV network. You just needed good lighting, a charismatic smile, and a doctrine that made people feel good about wanting more. Enter the modern megachurch era, and the new kings weren't old white men in suits anymore. They were cool. They were young. They wore skinny jeans and had podcasts. Stephen Furtick, Carl Lentz, Todd White, Brian Houston. They didn't preach about sin. They preached about breakthrough, destiny, your best life now. And the formula was perfect. Because when you're drowning in debt, depressed, addicted, or just exhausted from life, the last thing you want to hear is that you're a sinner who needs to repent. You want to hear that God wants you rich, that your depression is just the devil trying to block your blessing, that if you just sow one more $1,000 seed, everything will change, and they deliver that message with cinematic precision. Fog machines, moving lights, a worship set that builds for 25 minutes until half the room is sobbing. Then the pastor walks out, tells a heart-wrenching story about his own struggles, quotes 3 Bible verses completely out of context, and ends with the offering message that feels like a hostage negotiation. Some of you are one seed away from your miracle. I feel it in my spirit. There's a $1,000 seed in this room right now. If that's you, I want you to stand up. Don't miss your moment. And people do. They empty retirement accounts, they max out credit cards, they take out second mortgages. Because hope is a hell of a drug, and these churches are the most sophisticated dealers on the planet. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. Most of the people running them actually believe it. They're not all cynics laughing in the back room. Kenneth Copeland really thinks demons live in commercial airplanes. Joel Osteen really believes his wealth is proof God is blessing him. Creflo Dollar really thinks Jesus wants him flying private. They've built a theological fortress so airtight that any criticism just proves you don't have faith. You lose your house after tithing your rent money? You didn't have enough faith? Your kid dies of cancer after the church prayed for healing? There was sin in your life. The pastor gets caught in a scandal. He's under attack because he's such a threat to the devil. Heads they win, tails you lose, and the machine keeps growing. Because despair is infinite, and hope is the one product that never runs out of demand. So they keep building bigger stages, buying bigger planes, preaching bigger promises, while the people in the seats get smaller, more broken, more desperate, more addicted to the next high of a Sunday morning worship set. This isn't church. This is spiritual pornography. It feels incredible in the moment, but it leaves you emptier than when you walked in. And the worst part? The rest of Christianity sees it, knows it's wrong, but stays silent. Because to speak out is to risk being called divisive, judgmental, unloving. So the machine rolls on, and every week another 20,000 people walk into the lights. Looking for God, finding a brand instead. Let's step out of the lights for a moment and look at what's happening in the shadows. Because for every viral sermon, every Instagrammable worship night, there's a story you'll never see on stage. Stories of people who gave everything, time, money, trust, and walked away with nothing but scars. Meet Sarah. She was a single mom, working 2 jobs, barely making rent. She started attending a megachurch after a friend promised her, miracles happen here. The first Sunday, she was overwhelmed by the love bombing. Volunteers hugging her, pastors praying over her, people telling her God had a plan for her life. She started tithing. At first, just a little, then more. She joined a small group, started volunteering, and soon the church was her whole world. Every struggle was met with the same advice. Sow a seed, trust God, don't doubt. When her car broke down, she was told to give in faith and God would provide. When her son got sick, she was told to declare healing and keep tithing. When she lost her job, she was told to double down on her giving, because breakthrough always comes after the biggest sacrifice. But the breakthrough never came. Eventually, Sarah stopped going. She felt like a failure, like she let God down. The friends she'd made at church stopped calling. The pastor never reached out. She was alone, broke, and more hopeless than when she started. Sarah's story isn't rare. It's the rule. Because the prosperity gospel isn't just a bad theology. It's a system designed to keep you chasing a miracle that never comes. And it's not just about money, it's about control. Megachurches are masters of psychological manipulation. They use every tool in the book: love bombing, overwhelming new members with attention and affection. Groupthink. Creating an environment where questioning the leader is seen as rebellion against God. Shame cycles. If you're struggling, it's your fault for not having enough faith. Isolation. Encouraging you to cut off negative friends or family who don't support the church. It's cult tactics, dressed up in skinny jeans and worship music. And the numbers back it up. A 2017 study found that 70% of megachurch attendees report feeling pressured to give more than they can afford. Over half say they've experienced spiritual burnout. And yet, attendance keeps growing. Why? Because these churches are selling something more addictive than any drug: belonging. In a world where loneliness is an epidemic, megachurches offer instant community. You walk in a stranger and walk out with 100 new friends. You're told you're special, chosen, part of a movement that's changing the world. But it's conditional. As long as you keep showing up, as long as you keep giving, as long as you don't ask the wrong questions. The moment you do, the love dries up. Ask anyone who's tried to leave a megachurch. The silence is deafening. But what about the pastors? Aren't they just doing what they believe God called them to do? Some are, but many are running empires. Let's talk numbers. Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church brings in over $90 million a year. Stephen Furtick's Elevation Church, over $50 million. Creflo Dollar's World Changers Church International, $80 million. And where does the money go? Multi-million-dollar homes, private jets, luxury cars, designer wardrobes, massive marketing budgets, all tax-free. Because in the United States, churches don't pay taxes. They don't have to disclose their finances. They don't have to answer to anyone. It's the perfect loophole. And it's not just the pastors getting rich. There's a whole ecosystem. Worship leaders with record deals, conference speakers charging $10,000 a night, book deals, merchandise, online courses. It's a business, a brand. And the product is you, your attention, your loyalty, your money. But here's the twist. The people at the top genuinely believe they're doing God's work. They see the jets, the mansions, the fame as proof of God's favor. They preach that poverty is a curse and abundance is your birthright. They point to their own wealth as evidence that the system works. But for every pastor living in a mansion, there are thousands of followers living paycheck to paycheck, waiting for a miracle that never comes. And when the cracks start to show, when scandals break, when abuse is exposed, when the money runs dry, the machine just moves on. There's always another city, another congregation, another generation to sell the dream to. And the cycle repeats. But what about the good these churches do? Don't they run food banks, build schools, help the poor? Some do, but the numbers don't lie. Less than 10% of megachurch revenue goes to charity. The rest? Staff salaries, building maintenance, marketing, and ministry expenses. A category so vague it could mean anything. Meanwhile, the pastors keep preaching that giving is the key to your breakthrough. And the people keep giving because hope is hard to kill, even when it's killing you. Have you ever wondered why the music in megachurches is so loud? The lights so intense? The atmosphere so overwhelming? It's not just for show, it's by design. Let's talk about the science of the Sunday service. Neuroscientists have studied what happens to your brain during a typical megachurch worship set. The combination of loud, rhythmic music, dim lighting, and repetitive lyrics triggers a release of dopamine, the same chemical your brain releases when you eat chocolate, win a bet, or fall in love. That euphoric feeling you get when you're standing in the crowd, hands in the air, eyes closed, that's a neurochemical high. And when the music swells, the lights dim, and the pastor steps up to the mic, your brain is primed to receive whatever he says. This is why megachurches spend millions on sound systems, lighting rigs, and stage design. They're not just building a worship space, they're building a dopamine delivery system. But the manipulation doesn't stop at the music. Have you noticed how the pastor often tells the same stories, uses the same phrases, repeats the same promises? This is your season. Speak it into existence. Don't let anyone tell you it's impossible. This is a technique called neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, a way of using language to rewire how your brain processes information. By repeating these phrases over and over, the pastor isn't just making a point. He's planting a script in your mind. And when you leave the service, that script is still playing. Every time you face a challenge, hear a doubt, feel a fear, you hear the pastor's voice. This is your season. It's powerful, it's effective, and it's happening every Sunday in churches around the world. But the manipulation isn't just psychological, it's also social. Mega churches are masters of group dynamics. They create a sense of belonging so strong that leaving feels like betrayal. They use small groups, volunteer teams, and ministry opportunities to keep you plugged in, accountable, and invested. And the more you invest, the harder it is to leave. Psychologists call this the sunk cost fallacy. The more time, money, and emotion you put into something, the less likely you are to walk away, even when it's hurting you. Add in the fear of losing your community, the shame of admitting you were wrong, and the guilt of giving up on God. And you've got a trap that's almost impossible to escape. But here's where it gets even darker. Because the manipulation doesn't just happen inside the church building, it's now happening in your pocket. Welcome to the age of the digital megachurch. In the past, you had to go to the church to get hooked. Now, the church comes to you. Pastors like Stephen Furtick, Judah Smith, and Michael Todd have millions of followers on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. They post 60-second sermons, motivational quotes, and behind-the-scenes glimpses of their glamorous lives. And the algorithm loves them. Why? Because their content is designed to go viral. Short, punchy, emotionally charged, and endlessly shareable. Every time you watch, like, or comment, you're feeding the machine, and the machine learns to show you more of the same. Before you know it, your feed is full of pastors telling you to sow a seed, declare a breakthrough, and trust God for the impossible. And just like that, you're back in the loop. But the digital mega church isn't just about spreading the message, it's about building a brand. Pastors are now influencers. Their churches are content studios. Their sermons are product launches. And the product is always the same. You, your attention, your loyalty, your money. But there's a twist because the prosperity gospel isn't just an American phenomenon anymore. It's gone global. In Nigeria, pastors like David Oyedepo and TB Joshua have built massive followings, filling stadiums and dominating the airwaves. In South Korea, mega churches like Yoido Full Gospel Church have hundreds of thousands of members. In Brazil, the Universal Church of the Kingdom of God is one of the largest and wealthiest religious organizations in the world. And the message is the same everywhere. Give, and it will be given to you. Believe, and you will receive. Sow, and you will reap. But the cost is different. In the global South, where poverty is widespread and hope is scarce, the prosperity gospel is even more seductive. It offers a way out, a promise of a better life, a reason to keep going. And it's not just individuals who get hooked. Whole communities, even governments, can be swayed by the promise of divine prosperity. But the reality is rarely what it seems. For every miracle story, there are thousands of untold stories of disappointment, debt, and despair. Families torn apart by the pressure to give. Marriages destroyed by the obsession with seed faith. Lives ruined by the relentless pursuit of a miracle that never comes. And the pastors, they keep preaching. They keep building. They keep profiting. Because the machine doesn't care about the people it crushes. It only cares about growth. More followers, more money, more influence. And the cycle repeats. But there's a glimmer of hope. In recent years, a growing number of people have started to speak out. Ex-members, former pastors, and even some current leaders are beginning to question the prosperity gospel. They're sharing their stories, exposing the manipulation, and calling for accountability. And slowly, the tide is turning. But the machine is powerful, and it's not going down without a fight. So, where does this leave us? If you've made it this far, you might be feeling a mix of anger, disbelief, maybe even sadness. You might be thinking about someone you know, a friend, a parent, maybe even yourself, who's been swept up in the world of mega churches. Or maybe you're still not convinced. Maybe you've seen real good come out of these places. Maybe you felt something real in those crowds under those lights. And that's the hardest part of all. Because the truth is, not everything about mega churches is a lie. Not every pastor is a con artist. Not every worship song is manipulation. For some people, these churches are the only place they've ever felt seen, loved, or safe. For some, the community is real. The friendships are deep, and the hope is genuine. But that's what makes the dark side so dangerous. Because when something good is mixed with something toxic, it's almost impossible to separate the two. You can't just throw out the bad without losing the good. You can't just walk away without leaving a piece of yourself behind. And that's exactly how the machine survives. It thrives in the gray areas. It hides behind the good it does, the lives it changes, the hope it offers. It points to the food banks, the mission trips, the baptisms, and says, see, we're doing God's work. But behind the scenes, the numbers tell a different story. Billions of dollars flow through these churches every year. Pastors live like celebrities while their followers struggle to pay rent. Scandals are covered up. Whistleblowers are silenced, and the cycle of spiritual abuse continues. And the worst part? Most people will never see it because the machine is built to protect itself. If you question the system, you're labeled bitter, rebellious, or hurt by the church. If you speak out, you're accused of attacking God's anointed. If you leave, you're told you walked away from your faith. So the silence continues. But it doesn't have to. There's a growing movement of people who are done being silent. They're telling their stories, exposing the abuse, and demanding accountability. They're building new communities, smaller, humbler, more honest, where faith isn't measured by the size of your donation or the flashiness of your worship set. They're asking the hard questions. Why does a church need a private jet? Why are pastors living in mansions while members go hungry? Why is questioning leadership treated as rebellion? Why is giving always tied to blessing and suffering always blamed on lack of faith? And maybe, just maybe, they're starting to find answers. Because at the end of the day, faith isn't about money, power, or performance. It's not about stadiums, spotlights, or social media followers. It's about love. It's about truth. It's about community that doesn't come with a price tag. And that's something no megachurch can manufacture, no matter how many millions they spend. So what do we do with all of this? If you're inside a megachurch, ask questions. Look at the numbers, follow the money. Don't be afraid to challenge what doesn't feel right. If you've been hurt by a megachurch, know that you're not alone. Your story matters. Your pain is real. And there is life and faith beyond the machine. If you're watching from the outside, don't write off everyone inside. Most people are just looking for hope, for healing, for a place to belong. But don't be afraid to speak the truth either, because the only way the machine changes is if enough people refuse to play along. And maybe, just maybe, the next generation won't have to choose between faith and honesty, between hope and reality. Maybe they'll find a way to build something better, something real, something that doesn't need fog machines, million-dollar budgets, or celebrity pastors to feel like church. Something that looks a little more like the Jesus they claim to follow.